So there are multiple phases through the journey of an investment. Notice I said investment and not project, because we need to consider the whole picture. And project has been the thing that's been talked about for 50 years or so, and it's really the wrong thing to focus on. Somewhere before there's a project, there's an idea that comes up in somebody's mind who has sufficient motivation and power to start a conversation around it, but it doesn't really exist as a thing to start with. The very first moment it comes into existence, it's between somebody's ears. It's a light bulb moment. So the first set of activities is about building momentum. And you may or may not have been involved. It might be somebody with power comes up to you and says, I've had this idea that I'd like to work up. Or it could be that they come to you and say, we've got this project ongoing and you're going to get involved 3 steps beyond what I've started to describe here. But you will need to be aware of what happened prior to your involvement in that case. So the first chunk is about coming to a position where we have a prospect that's sufficiently well known that it has some sort of description or name, and it has some stakeholders who support it. There's a coalition with a commitment, and somewhere in that journey from light bulb to first qualification decision point is the answering of the questions like, why are we doing this? And the why are we considering, because we haven't actually decided to do yet. The documentation that often surrounds this is either called something like a terms of reference or a charter. It may have been that the light bulb moment was the arrival of a request for proposal or quotation from a customer, and so there is a possibility of a contract. But anyway, there's a first step during which the important thing to create is a coalition with commitment and a description that is sufficient to justify spending some time and activity on qualifying whether this is really something that we want to commit to. And at this stage, it's not project, it's portfolio. Is this thing a sufficiently worthwhile use of our time and energies that we want to commit to it and deliver it? And in that activity is typically when the project manager gets appointed, and the activity of the project manager and any of the stakeholders who are bought into the project at that point is to create a description of the justification, which often includes phrases like business plan or cash flow, but is expressing the roadmap and or the plan and or the controls so that we can ask for approval to formally initiate the consumption of resources in the organisation as a commitment and an investment to what we think is some good future benefit. And typically this is done by the project manager on behalf of whoever the sponsor is and receives some sort of formal approval. And in textbook terms, we talk about creating project plans, and they may be documents. But really what we need here, the essential element, taking away it's a project plan, isn't it? The essential element here is the shared understanding that the team through debate identified the coulds, and the team through debate settled on so what we will do is. Often during the debate there is that we could do this. Yes, we could. Why would we? Well, I don't know. And we end up with a whole bunch of options that choosing between is impossible during the planning stage. And then we get into action, and somebody will say, when we were planning, we had options A, B, and C, and we didn't know which one to pick. Well, I can now see that B is a better option than A. So getting to sanction is about sharing planning activities. And planning activities are not about producing a plan. They're about producing a group of people who have a shared understanding, a shared intent, and the criteria by which to judge whether they are progressing towards the required endpoint. There's a quote attributed to the Swiss Army Manual. I don't know whether it's true, and it really doesn't matter, but it says, when the map and the terrain differ, believe the terrain. I've heard it re-expressed as, when the map and the terrain differ, tear up the map. I'm not actually convinced it's possible to tear up the terrain, but planning is a social activity of debate that identifies options. A plan is the selection of one set of options at the time we are the most ignorant about which options would be useful. So plans are useless, planning is essential. And that last is an amendment of a quote from attributed either to General Eisenhower or von Moltke, who said, in matters of warfare I have always found planning essential, but plans to be utterly useless. Meaning that the way in which you forge a winning team is you give them a goal and the space to debate how they will mutually achieve that goal. And how will we mutually achieve that goal is, in project terms, the focus on the product development activities. And the product development activities are the work or activity of the team with a wholly quality control focused a quality control focus. It's only by understanding how to measure or confirm that we are producing results that are conformance for specification, and we hope fit for purpose, that we can tell what our progress is. And if we continue to operate successfully with good quality control, we will generate the sorts of audit trails that are needed in order to be able to measure our productivity in creating the product result or the deliverables that are required with a verified result. And a verified result means we've tested it against what was asked for, which may not be what was wanted. And the test about what was wanted has to be a business test conducted by business participants, asking the question, is this what you need in order to generate value? So there's two tests that we need to happen, or two aspects to testing that we need to happen. The verification that asks, are we doing what was asked for? And that's constant, and I will amplify that for you in a minute. And the did I get what I need, whether I asked for it or not? And as I receive the deliverables from the project, I'm taking the business from a nice green stable state into a state of instability, the red bit, and then I'm taking the business from that red instability into stable production activity in the future, which is hopefully generating lots and lots of benefits. And it's quite possible that as the project's people at gate number 4, which is the close the project point, my responsibilities ended, and there should be some tests somewhere in production, perhaps they're the annualized report and accounts, that say we're getting the benefits that we expected. So the investment journey is light bulb moment through to sufficient formalization that we know that we're going to gather a team, through the team building activities of understanding where we're going and expressing the justification, up to the decision point that says, yes, okay, let's engage in a project. And then there's the mutual interdependent activity of the project team members that take them up to delivery, where they confirm that they have delivered what was asked for. And at this point, they probably ought to get their what's in it for me and their bonuses. But there is, from the business perspective, now the test of, when we got what we asked for, did we get what we needed? And if you're unsure about that, whether that will happen, there are some techniques on the next slide to cover how we will ensure that. then those aspects that are delivered and are fit for purpose are brought into operational use, and then the operational habits and cadence and rhythm for the future that builds a normal business as usual activity with lots of benefit, which doesn't have to be money. I mean, maybe our project was to build a soup kitchen to feed the homeless. So not all of this is not all about money. But now we're back into business as usual. Business as usual. That product development bit and the transition is a bit problematic. We better explore that in a bit more detail.